Hello and welcome to the QA Therapy podcast. Are you looking to improve your overall testing and quality practices? My name is Sergio Freire and I'm a solution architect and a testing advocate at Xray.
And my name is Cristiano Cunha, and I'm also a solution architect and test advocate. And we'll be your hosts and QA therapists throughout this series. In this podcast, we're going to tackle some of the most common testing and quality challenges that we all face in our teams. So if this sounds good to you, keep on listening. There are many companies providing testing services for their customers. Outsourcing testing is a common practice, as is outsourcing in general. But what are the challenges? How efficient is it? To assist us in this topic, we have not one, but two special guests with us, Federico Toledo and Lucía Lavagna. So please stay tuned. Let's start to see what is bringing you here. What are the symptoms that you may have been feeling that has brought you to listen to this podcast? So ask yourself, do you outsource your development, but the quality is not the expected? Are the deliverables of your development team lacking quality? Or do you have special testing needs like performance or accessibility, but no one that can address that? Or even, is your testing framework not stable or missing main functionalities?
All these are symptoms that quality is not being addressed in the best way, let's say. Maybe you are not in a software company, but have high quality standards that are not fulfilled right now. Or maybe you are in a software company that never has considered testing as a priority. Either way, outsourcing testing, at least in part, may be an option to consider. Let's dive a bit into this topic. And to help us with diagnosis and prescription, today we have here with us Lucía Lavagna and Federico Toledo, our experts or QA therapists for today, to assist us on diagnosis and prescription on these symptoms related to testing. Federico is a frequent speaker and participant on testing conference, and he is also the COO of Abstracta, and Lucía is the Chief Growth Officer at Abstracta, a company that provides testing services. Welcome, Federico and Lucía. Are you comfortable on our QA therapy couch?
Thank you for having us. A pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. A pleasure to sit in your couch this day.
Let's get the show starting. And I'll start with a kind of a provocative kind of question. And the first question is then, should we outsource testing? When is it like a viable solution?
I know that you expect us to say yes, that you should outsource, but I will go with a different answer. I will say that in many cases, yes, but typically it depends. And I think that it depends on the relationship you can build between the two companies. The one needing the testing and the one outsourcing, providing the outsource services, right? But there is another way to look at the same question, maybe. If you are a team developing a specific software, a specific product, I will ask, are you able to form the testers with the skills you need? Do you have the focus, the time, the energy to even to help them to be motivated, to have all the skills, as I said, to be constantly learning and to do the best testing, the testing that you need in your team. So this is another way to look at the same question, maybe, because according to that answer, it's my answer if it's okay to outsource or not, right?
Yeah, I think for sure, having skilled testers is something that many teams are lacking, and sometimes we forget that it's so important to have persons that can think about testing and risks, and that requires experience, right?
I think there is a misconception. Typically, we see outsourcing as the cheap option, right?
Yeah.
But actually, one of the best things you can get out of the outsourcing is that you will have a partner with a specific focus on a specific around a specific topic. It could be testing, it could be infrastructure, it could be development of a specific technology. But I think this is the most important part. Not only looking to improve your or optimize your costs. That of course this could be also an advantage of outsourcing, but also I will look at it from the perspective of having a partner, not a provider, also a partner that can help you with that specific thing that you need in that moment.
Yeah, and you said one thing that is interesting. That is, most of the times, what we think about outsourcing is, well, we will have an QA team outsourced and they will do the test and that's it. But what models do you have in terms of providing testing services? And also, which ones are the most common used or works best? And by models, I mean like, fully outsourced QA team, or helping the knowledge of testers that are already there with quality coaches or something like that. So what kind of services do you provide, and what are the ones that you think are working better nowadays?
No, that's interesting that you bring it up in that way in terms of the integration, because as Federico said, what we aim to be for our clients or for the people that we collaborate is an ally, a partner in quality that we can help them support their goals. So the answer to your question is it's going to depend very much on where the company stands in terms of their testing maturity or the conformation of their teams. So sometimes we are their whole quality organization and we take care of strategy planning as well as providing the team that carries them out. Sometimes we extend their internal teams with specific capabilities, automation, performance, skills that they don't have within teams. What we aim to build with our customers normally are ongoing relationships that are long lasting, where we integrate into their processes and that can provide not only the thinking and the consulting, as you were saying, but also the implementation. This is how we found that we add more value over time, because we don't only have a say on what we don't only do what needs to be done in terms of quality, but we can also have a say on what to do. We call these managed teams, right? We provide a managed team which has yes, hands-on dedicated testers that get embedded in the teams, but also a test lead that can help assess the quality or the maturity of quality within the organization, provide recommendations. We often help our clients draft their quality strategy according to their own roadmap. And that comes within being in there, embedded, understanding the company's goals, the company's objectives, their goals around quality, and drafting a roadmap for that. And that tends to be like a managed team ongoing, where we, as I was saying, like where we plan what needs to be done and we do it and we provide visibility, we review that strategy over time. There's other cases though where that doesn't make that much sense, because some other scenarios might call for a specific project, where this is typically the case of a performance test, of a load testing. A company comes with a specific needs. I need to validate that I can withhold load before Black Friday. That's a classic, right? So maybe in that scenario, we're going to have like a more of a closed project where it's going to have a start and an end date, where we're going to draft a specific timeline or scope and work on that. And as I was saying, in other cases, we want to adapt to what the client needs. So sometimes they have a big team, they have quality leaders that are already thinking that planning, and they might just need skilled professionals to jump in. And maybe in those very specific cases, we'll just assign a person to that team. But we tend to lean more towards a way where we can bring in our expertise, bring in our experience, our 14 years of experience, to be able to say, hey, this is where I think you should take this, providing best practices, providing methodologies where we think that can happen. So yeah, it depends a little bit, but more normally it tends to be a little bit around that, a managed team that can handle all of it.
You mentioned testing several times. Of course. We are talking about testing. Do you end up performing more black box kind of testing, or it also depends on how you integrate with the existing teams?
I think this is a very interesting question, but mainly because I don't see it related to the fact that we are an external provider or partner.
It's not dependent on that.
uh, on my view, from my point of view, is like this is how I've seen most of the testers working with different teams, even when they are part of the team. As Lucia was explaining, we try to be as embedded as we are allowed to, as we can. So we become part of the development team, and we are participating in all of the meetings and rituals and everything. So, and in all of the activities, and we participate in the same Scrum board, let's say. Okay, so. And in many cases, we can get some information related to the internals of the application. Let's say the database schema, the different APIs, or different things that can help us to make decisions on how to test the product. But if your question was if we base our testing on the source code, the answer is no. We don't typically do that. This is not the common scenario. But we try to get as much information of the internals of the application to assess risks, technical risks, or to assess which areas of the application require this specific type of testing. So I would say it's kind of a gray box, not a completely black box, but it's not that we are reviewing the code in order to provide 100% coverage on some sort of metric related to that. Does it make sense?
Yeah, totally.
All the classic ones.
I was expecting that.
Yeah, we've seen them all. But let's start with some. Automate everything. This is one of the most typical things that they come to you saying, I need help to automate all the test cases, all the regression suite, or something like that, right? Or another thing that I mentioned before, testing is cheap, right? So it's gonna be cheaper working with you because they are already showing you that they don't value the role of testing, or they don't see the value that you can provide. This is another important misconception, I would say. And on the other side, you also have this idea of giving all the responsibility of any problem that you have in production to the QA department, right? Why didn't you find this bug before we released, right? This is another typical thing that it happens, and it's still happening nowadays. I mean, we've been talking about this for years, and the whole team approach to quality, right? I think we are in an echo chamber talking within different testers that this is the proper way of looking at the quality in a team, but there are still people out there in management positions, for example, thinking that the quality is the responsibility of the tester, and if something goes wrong, it's their fault, right?
So coming back to your experience on how you are being integrated into companies and helping them on the testing efforts, what are the challenges that you have seen? And I believe Lucia has already brought some of them up, like the difficulty to access probably the source code sometimes. But what other difficulties do you feel as being an outsourced team helping the testing efforts?
I think there's one big one, which is around communication, which is about being integrated, being made part of those processes. Because as we know, in testing, communication is going to be key. Being able to understand what's being done, so that happens there. And one of the things that we've done in order to bridge that challenge or bridge that gap has been that model that Federico was saying. Right, we even as an outsourced provider aim to be embedded in the team, part of the team, have our people be within every instance, if they're doing like an agile process, participating in their daily meetings, communication channels. Also, sharing time zone for that makes a huge difference. So that's even a bigger challenge when we're talking about providers where or outsourced teams that don't share any of the times of the day, of the work day, right? That's a challenge that we've seen, and in our experience, sharing at least part of the work day makes a big difference. Another part of communication is also language, obviously, because the outsourced providers might not necessarily share that same language. So being able to have a fluid communication in the language that we're talking is huge. And also being there in time, right? Responsiveness, attention to detail, which are some of the things that are come in around attending certain priorities, which is, I guess, it's all embedded under the hat of communication, but there's different aspects there that I think can come from having outsourced providers. Another thing that comes to mind when thinking of outsourcing is the ownership that the teams can have. I think sometimes companies, when they define having an external company take care of something as their quality, something that comes to mind is, okay, should this be something that I have internally and I take care of myself? What happens to this knowledge that is generated, right? I don't want to create all these processes that I then can't keep. So for us, knowledge management is something that's key. And we don't aim to be, at least how we tackle it, we don't aim to be the holders of the truth here. Like, we aim to share everything that we're doing, and even having documentation of things that we're doing, sharing as we do, like mentoring the teams in which we're working with is something that's important for us. And also, like, when people change companies, which obviously we are not in industry with a lot of rotation, when people leave, we tend to pay a lot of attention to how we do that knowledge management of like the things that person was doing, right?
Let's say in general, do you use tools to assist you somehow while testing, or to track the testing process overall, and more or less connected to this with what is like the importance of tools in the testing space, no matter the kind of tools that we may be thinking of?
Yeah, sure. Tools, of course, are really important in order to automate some things, some part of the different process. I'm not talking about automating test cases, also about that, but automating different processes, even helping with the visibility, with the communication. So we are using tools all the time. The way we position ourselves is like an tool agnostic company. So we try to adapt our methodologies, all what we do, to the tools that our customer is using, right? The tools that they are using. So, for instance, that applies to test automation. For instance, if they already have a test suite automated in a certain tool and they want to continue using that tool, okay, we can adapt to that. The same for if they are using Jira, Xray, or any type of tool, we are adapting to those tools that they are already have in place. And of course, the tools are important. Tools, people, and processes. Those are the key pillars of the software development, right? But yeah.
So I think connected to all this that we have been talking, and I would say that this is our last question for today. Are you kind of asked for having metrics around quality and about the whole testing process? If so, do you have like any examples that you want to share? Do you think they are useful at all?
Yeah, and well, the question is if we are asked to provide metrics. This is not the typical scenario. We are typically the ones who push to show the value we are providing, because as Lucía was saying before, we need to provide visibility, especially to the one who decided to hire us, the one paying the bills, right? This person is not typically involved in the daily activities, because the developers or the people who are in the team working every day, they see the value you provide because they are interacting with you every day. But the upper management, maybe they are not aware of every detail, so you have to be able to provide them some sort of visibility, and in many cases metrics are very useful for that. In some cases, we are asked to provide specific metrics like the number of test cases, the coverage, or the bugs that we reported, and we provide that because we are asked. But I don't see those metrics being particularly useful. But it's really associated to what we have been hired for. So that's why we have to provide those. But we don't have a standard set of metrics that we try to apply to every project. This is also that we try to adapt to the specific context of our customer. But I can mention some that I find useful. For example, the lead time. How much time does it take from the requirement to that specific change or feature in the hands of the users? Or I don't know, uptime, response time, their resource utilization in terms of performance. That's something that we typically do a lot. If we are talking about number of bugs, maybe it's more important to analyze the errors or bugs that we have in production and analyze the severity or the impact that they have in order to have an analysis of how efficient we are in the quality that we are providing, right? Those just to mention a few, right? But another thing that maybe it's also not only focusing on specific metrics, but also on achievements or milestones. It's like, okay, the team achieved the sending releasing a new version without impacting negatively any user, or this feature is being adopted by 80% of the users already. So this is more like a metric that shows the progress of the whole team.
More on the outcomes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So thank you, Federico and Lucia, for being here with us today and helping us understand our organizations, or even individual testing consultants can help other teams out there. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's great to have you. And one lesson that we have here is with experience, the answer of most questions is it will depend. And I really felt that, because it's not only because we are getting older, but it really depends on the context, on the teams, on the background, on all of the things. And it's something that I would expect to have from an outsourcing company, that they will adjust to what the company they are going through. And well, after that, it will depend on the goals, what they want to, and everything. So yeah, I really like the conversation. So thank you.
Before ending our episode, it's time for some vitamins. We know that in general, they are good for our health. In this case, we'll be talking about vitamin X, where X stands for Xray. If your testing is more delegated to a team, internal or external, and if you want to have some control over that process, you can adapt the way you use Xray to suit your needs. Some examples of what you can do would be to create an empty test set internally with the goals of what you want to include on it, and then let the team specify the related tests. Eventually, you could apply some workflows on top of it to have finer control over the process. Another example could be to have a task plan specifically assigned to a team, or to have some tests grouped in a special folder inside of an existing task plan for that purpose. How you implement your testing process is up to you, and Xray is flexible enough to keep it light or have a greater control over it.
And we have learned that in this fast-paced and online world, not every company have development teams, but almost all need online presence. Sometimes, to achieve that, they need to use external service to develop and test their product. This is where the testing services companies enter. Testing services are here to help, and in certain cases, they are the better option, as we have seen. They can help address a specific need that you do not have expertise on, or help you set up your process. Do not lose our upcoming episode where we'll explore other relevant testing subjects. So see you in our next therapy session. Happy testing!
Happy testing!